Good evening. I'd like to call to order the December 20th meeting of the Plan Commission meeting. The time is 7 p.m. The meeting's notice was appropriately posted, and I will continue on with the roll call. I am Mayor Kim Smith. I am here. Tom Smith is excused absence. Jared Holter.
Here.
Dan Brock. Duke Temte.
Present.
Eric Archer.
Present.
Bill Lethan.
Bill, here.
Thank you. And we'll continue on with item 2, consideration and action from the previous meeting minutes. Someone like to make a motion regarding the disposition of the minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the previous meeting.
I'll second those.
Okay, motion by Jared Holter, seconded by Newt Temte to approve the minutes from the previous meeting. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Item 3 is our time for public input. This is a time where any member of the public may address the Plan Commission this evening. If you choose to do so, please begin by stating your name and your address, and please limit your comments to 3 minutes. We do have several public hearings on the agenda. So if you can speak at both times, or you can wait till the public hearing if you have a specific agenda item that you'd like to speak to. But this is the time now for any public input. Would anybody like to give any public input this evening? General. Last call for general public input. Not seeing or hearing any, we'll continue on with consideration and possible action on the following items. Item 4 is a public hearing for the Plan Unit Development Amendment application to amend the Grandview Estates PUD to define special building setbacks for lots 50 and 53 located in the Grandview Estates Phase 2 subdivision located along Crestwood Lane, Madison Heights Drive, and Grand Glen Court on Alaska. For the record, this is tax parcel ID number 18-6664-0 and 18-6667-0. The applicant is Grandview Estates. Is there anyone here this evening that would like to speak in favor of this amendment? Second call for anyone wishing to speak in favor. Third and final call for anyone wishing to speak in favor of this amendment. Not seeing or hearing anyone. Now I will ask if anyone would like to speak against. Second call if anyone would like to speak against this amendment. Third and final call for anyone wishing to speak against. Not seeing or hearing anyone. The public hearing is now closed, and I will ask our city planner to give a brief recap of this item.
Thank you, Mayor. The Common Council and Plan Commission have previously approved a preliminary plat, final plat, planned unit development, and a planned unit development amendment for Grandview Estates Phase 1 and Phase 2 subdivisions, which contain a total of 56 new parcels near Nathan Hill. This PUD is to define special building setbacks for lots 50 and 53 located in the Grandview Estates Phase 2 subdivision as previously allowed. Including the staff report are drawings of the request. The reasoning is based on irregular lot sizes and the ability to satisfy traditional residential setback requirements. They have included a document with specific setback deviations and reasons for each particular lot. A summation is to essentially reduce the street yard setback from 25 feet to 18 feet for 8 parcels, which was previously granted by the Common Council for 16 other parcels within the subdivision. City staff have put together 6 conditions of approval for this development. Thank you.
Thank you. I will now turn this matter over to the Plan Commission. What is your desire?
I have a question. If lot 50 and 53 is 18 feet and 60 and 61 is the standard, what do you say? 20 feet, 30 feet? Is it going to be does it put any, is it gonna be odd having a different setback for slots 52 and 51?
Okay, let's ask our city planner to maybe highlight the pros and cons of changing the setback or how it's different.
Sure. So historically, the ability to reduce a setback or to increase a setback are fairly common requests, especially in a planned unit development that we see. The purpose of this one coming back with these two particular lots is that I failed to include them in the previous months. So this is essentially a continuation of what was approved by the Plan Commission and Common Council before. These particular lots are built in a very steep bluffland area, so allowing them the reduced setback will allow them to take and make better use of their property. And since it is consistent within the development itself, it may be different than what you would see in a traditional subdivision located throughout the city of Onalaska, but within this subdivision, it follows the pattern that the developer and the vision that they have created for it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. Any other questions or comments? Otherwise, we'll take a motion.
I make a motion to approve this change in the setback with the conditions that they've listed.
Okay, motion is to approve this application to amend with the 6 conditions. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any other discussion? Skip?
Your Honor, just a point of procedure. Shouldn't we make a motion before we start the questioning and things like that? I just want to make sure that we do things in the right order. That's all.
That is correct.
I mean, it's no big deal, but is that the procedure we should use?
The procedure is to make the motion first and then have the discussion.
Okay, that's all. I just want to make sure that we do things in the right order.
I apologize.
Okay, so the motion was by Bill Lethan. The second was by Eric Archer to approve with the 6 conditions. Is there further discussion? Okay, and all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion carries unanimously. Item 5 is a public hearing for the general development plan application to create a planned unit development to request deviations from the Unified Development Code relating to the mixed-use commercial district standards, specifically minimum building street frontage and minimum ceiling height requirements as a part of the construction of a new office facility and site improvements located at 200 French Road, Onalaska. This is tax parcel ID number 18-4453-0, and the applicant is the DBS Group. I'll now open the public hearing, and anyone wishing to speak in favor of this general development plan application, PUD, now is the time to do so. Anyone wishing to speak in favor? Please step forward, begin by stating your name and your address, and please limit your comments to 3 minutes.
Chris Walters, address is 2341 Gladstone Cove in Onalaska. I'm here to support the project at 200 French Road. I'm the applicant for the project. We started looking for a new site for DBS Group over 2 years ago. Our goal has been all along to stay within the city of Onalaska. I'm a longtime resident. Many of our team members are as well. So we're really excited that 200 French Road is going to be the new home for our company headquarters. I would like to note that we have acquired additional land from CCU to get us to the minimum 1 acre parcel size to apply for the PUD. The CSM was actually recorded at the county yesterday. We've done our best to plan a project that best fits existing site conditions, and we think it's going to be one that's going to add value to the neighborhood and add value to the community. And we're excited to invest in the city of Onalaska. Myself and our civil engineer are here, and we're happy to answer any questions that the Plan Commission may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this planned unit development request? Third call for anyone wishing to speak in favor. Okay, now we'll move on. If anyone would like to speak against, now is the time. If anyone would like to speak against the general development plan application to create the plan unit development. Please step forward. Begin by stating your name and address.
Good evening,
Evening.
Dennis King, 315 French Road. I'm representing the Deer Creek Condo Association. We're not necessarily against this project. We just like to get some more information. As Jared knows, our water issue there is kind of at its maximum. Our retention pond during a heavy rain gets filled up. We've had Steiger Corporation do some work with the permission of the DNR to exit it more efficiently into Deer Creek. We're concerned that in the 200 block of French Road, there are no storm sewers. All the storm sewer grates, with the exception of one, empty into our retaining pond. The one that I'm referring to empties into a pipe installed by the city of Onalaska. And it goes across Hanson Road and across the driveway of Jim Hanson, which is in Maderi, and exits out on the bank of French Creek. It's too early for me to tell. I'm not an engineer, but I'm looking at the site improvement and I'm showing a small retention pond. And I don't see an exit for it or anything. So that's, at this point, I would just like to get information, maybe from the DNR or anybody else, about how the water runoff is going to be affected. And then when CCU put their building in, we got a additional from the city. They asked for a buffer zone of trees. Well, the first thing they took down when they started development was those trees. And I understand that's going to be the parking lot. And I was wondering if they're going to replace those nice trees. They just got to a good size, you know. So that's our concerns at this point. The setback, and that is better minds than mine. But I want the water retention and the landscaping addressed. Thank you for your time.
Thanks. Would anyone else like to speak against this PUD? Please step forward. State your name and your address.
Good evening. My name is Joseph Staken. I live on 342 French Road in Onalaska. And that's part of the Deer Creek condominium complex. I'm not necessarily for or against it like Mr. King had indicated, but I have some questions. You said that this is mixed use commercial development. What does that exactly encompass?
This isn't a time for asking questions. You can talk, and when we get to our discussion, we may address those questions.
Sorry?
This isn't a time to have a dialogue. You're just to speak, and then when you're all done talking, then we'll have our discussion.
Oh, okay.
You can certainly ask some questions that we may address
Well,
later in the meeting.
I just was curious at what type of mixed commercial development is allowed in there. I mean, there's nothing in this paperwork that indicates that the actual zoning regulation. Secondly, is there a member from the DNR here to address the water runoff situation with this property? Because it does border very closely to a small retention pond between it and the bank, and also the area of Deer Creek itself. And, you know, you are installing a parking lot in there, which is, oops, excuse me. The parking lot does create a lot of water runoff, and will that seriously affect
that area. And if it does, I think we may have to review that situation. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else who would like to speak against this PUD? Second call, if anyone would like to speak against. Third and final call for anyone else who'd like to speak. Okay, the public hearing is now closed, and I'll ask our city planner, Katie Aspenson, to briefly summarize the topic for the commission.
Thank you, Mayor. This planned unit development request is to allow from deviations to the Unified Development Code district-specific standards for the mixed-use community district MUC. In particular, the developer is asking to deviate from the UDC in 2 areas, including waiving the minimum building street frontage requirement and minimum interior ceiling height requirement. The parcel was 0.98, and as mentioned by DBS, they have gained the necessary lot acreage in order to apply for a PUD. And included in the packet for you this evening are an overall site map, architectural plans, and also a landscaping plan provided by the applicant, as well as their cover letter and application. In particular, density, the PUD perimeter, lot area, yard setbacks, building height, environmental cultural design, open space parking, streets, utilities, drainage, traffic calming designs, circulation and access, landscaping, and signage. The developer and the proposed development will comply with all aspects of the UDC with their development. In particular, they're only asking for the city to consider the architectural standards. So as stated, the applicant is requesting to waive section 13.02.54.A.1.A, which requires the minimum percentage of the street frontage for each lot that has to be occupied by the building as measured by the required maximum front yard setback shall be 75%. As stated in the cover letter, the applicant has considered multiple locations for the structure to be located on the parcel, and due to site grading constraints, the owner has selected the highest portion of the lot for the building and the lowest portions of the lot for the parking and green space. Additionally, the applicant is requesting to waive section 13.02.54.B.2.A, which requires the ground story of a new building to have a minimum interior clearance of floor to ceiling height of 12 feet down to 8 feet. Staff are supportive of the request related to the minimum percentage of street frontage due to the layout and grade changes of the lot as previously described. The applicant noted that the ceiling heights throughout the new building varied from 8 to 12 plus feet. City staff believe the intention of the code has been met with the proposed building design and support the ceiling height reduction request. City staff have put together a total of 12 conditions with this development. Thank you.
Thank you, Katie. With that, I'll turn this matter over to the Plan Commission. We'll start with a motion to put the item on the floor for discussion.
I'll make a motion that we approve agenda item number 5 with the 12 conditions stated in the by the city.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second that.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor by Newt Temte. It's been seconded by Jan Brock. Is there any discussion? Jarrett?
Couple things. So just starting off, I was visited by the neighbor to the east, Mr. Jim Hansen. In our office, he was not able to attend the meeting tonight, but he did have a couple things that I went through with him, and he actually supplied some pictures for us. But 2 of the things, one of them he brought up was also the drainage question, which I'll kind of go over here in a minute. But one of the other concerns that he stated, he owns the concrete block garage that is just to the east of this property. So, and it's relatively close to the property line with the parcel that is proposed to have the work done on it. One of the things he was requesting was either a fence or landscaping along the driveway to ensure that the snow did not blow down on there and have a buffer. That was the one thing that he he brought up as a request as part of this change. He did say that he had met with the DBS representatives and they were very accommodating to him and had met with him on a couple of occasions and discussed the project with him. So he seemed to be, in discussions with them. So he seemed to be, didn't have a no to the project, but he just had a couple concerns. So I just wanted to make sure that was brought in the record for him. Then as far as drainage goes, I have been in contact with the owner, DBS's engineering firm of Paragon Associates. Have actually discussed the drainage with their engineer that is designing the site. We have looked at the ponding area that is there. Currently the French Road has some catch basins at the corner of Hanson Place and French Road intersection that do drain down and discharge into a ditch area, which is where the overflow from the pond will go down into, and then there's a city-owned pipe that goes down to the unnamed creek down below the French Valley development. That pipe actually has more capacity due to the slope of the pipe than the pipe coming from French Road. That drainage, when we looked at it, did appear that it would be sufficient. We have not finalized that yet. We will have to go through that with the engineer to finalize it once to get their approvals and give them site plan approvals. So, but we have looked at it. I have talked to two different individuals at the engineering firm to go over those topics. And that is one of the things that we will be reviewing as part of the final process.
Thank you. Katie?
I would like to address the comments related to the landscaping. So there were a number of pine trees, as noted by the citizen, that were part of the original development. In order to accommodate the grading of the site, those trees needed to be removed. We do have a copy of the landscaping plan that we can share. It is in the packet, or if you're interested, we can provide that as well. The applicant is planning to install a berm on the north side of the parking lot that would act as a visual separation, as well as 39 new juniper trees, conifers that would be at least a 6-foot height. And they're going to be installed far closer together, which will actually provide a much better screen than what is there today, just based on the sheer distance separation is going to be much less than what is there today. So it'll actually provide, in staff's opinion, a better buffer than what does or what used to exist today before the tree removal. They also have a number of additional trees, including some oaks and hackberries, so some taller trees that are going to be along that driveway area, again, between the parking lot and the road, to add some additional landscaping. So they will have to comply with every aspect of the code. They do have a lot of frontage, so we require 1 tree for every 25 feet of frontage, but the amount of pine trees, conifer trees that they're putting in exceeds what it is that we're looking for. And they're doing that, I believe, as a means to be a good neighbor to the individuals to the north. There are a variety of uses that are allowed in the mixed use district. Those are available online, and I can share that information with you as well. The intent of the mixed use districts is to allow some commercial uses that are less intrusive into a neighborhood. Previously, this particular property was zoned light industrial, which would have let in almost any use that the city had, commercial or otherwise. This district is far more restrictive in terms of the types of uses. And we also have a number of design criteria and architectural standards that only apply to this district, again, with the intent of making sure that any new commercial use or multifamily use that would go in has to adhere to these standards and meld in better and be more compatible with the surrounding neighborhood. And they're not requesting any deviations from the actual architectural standards at this point. So they are satisfying all of the UDC requirements.
Thank you for that, Katie. We appreciate it. Is there any other discussion? Okay, the motion that we have on the floor is to approve this PUD with the 12 conditions. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion is approved. Thank you all for coming in tonight and for your questions. Item 6 is a public hearing for the general development plan application to create a planned unit development to request deviations from the Unified Development Code relating to mixed-use neighborhood district standards, specifically minimum building street frontage and minimum transparency window requirements, parking lot setbacks requirement, and site element screening requirement as part of a remodeling and other site improvements for a project located at 910 Second Avenue North on Alaska. This is tax parcel ID number 18-1276-0, and the applicant is Hagenbarth Investments. I'll now open the public hearing and ask if anyone would like to speak in favor of this planned unit development request. Please come forward and start by stating your name and your address.
Hello, my name is Dave Hagenbarth. Excuse me, my address is 2519 Cedar Creek Lane in Onalaska. I'm the owner of the building and we've owned it for 10, 12 years and have over that time have had at least 3 food service type entities in that building. Restaurant business, as you all know, is very challenging. Nob Hill owned the building originally and they were very successful for a long time in Onalaska. So our purpose was to look at repurposing the building and we had the opportunity to look at it becoming an office facility. The VA is interested in making a counseling center. They presently have one on Copeland Avenue in La Crosse that they're going to move up to our location. So we're very excited about that. And I just wanted to say, I want to make sure you knew who I was, and I'm going to ask Mark, our architect, to come up and fill you in on more detail. Thank you.
Sure, thank you. Okay, come on up, state your name and address.
Good evening. My name is Mark Schmidt. I'm an architect with Art Studio in La Crosse. My address is actually N5935 Park Drive in Onalaska. And I just wanted to go over some of the points here. So as Dave mentioned, this is a project for a VA vet center. We're pretty excited about it, moving the VA's counseling center up there. And the challenge that we're facing is that with this being an existing building and the way it's zoned currently, the building doesn't really fit the zoning quite the way that it should. So we've had a number of discussions with the planning staff and feel like going for this PUD and we have 4 asks and that would bring the building into full compliance. Even though it was built a long time ago, we're remodeling it and going to bring it into full compliance. So I just wanted to touch on the 4 asks that we have tonight. So the first one is the frontage standards, which we don't meet. Again, it's an existing building. We currently only have less than 17% on one side of the building and 0% on the other side. I believe the requirement is 60%. And this is just, again, this just has to do with an existing building and the way it's sited on top of the hill. There's not really much we can do about that. So that would be our first ask. Our second ask is has to do with the transparency requirements. And I think this is a great requirement. It's very what I would call new urbanist, and it gives a street appeal, pedestrian friendly urban centers. And I think it's a great idea. And I appreciate the city putting something like this in the requirements. The problem is, again, this building was built before any requirements like that. That transparency requirement, again, I believe it's 60%, really lends itself to a retail or mercantile store like you see on Main Street, right here on Main Street, where you have a lot of frontage and windows glazing that merchants can put their items on display, is really where that comes from. And again, this building just doesn't have that. It's not set on the site that way. It wasn't designed for that. And to try and put that much transparency into our building would be extreme. Right now, the building at the west face, there is a lot of glazing on it right now, but we're still only at 26%. The south side is only 6%. And the east side is just a little over 7%. And that east side is not a main frontage. The requirement there is only 12%. So to add a lot of windows is just not, I don't think we could do it structurally, and it wouldn't be conducive to the uses of the building, being an office and counseling center. So that's our second ask. Our third ask has to do with, if I can find it here. Our third ask has to do with the parking. And again, the way the lot was laid out originally, the parking lot basically sits right on the property line. Otherwise, it meets all the parking requirements. In fact, the lot is oversized for what we need. So we're proposing to take out a significant portion of it. We're going to leave the required parking for the VA, and per the city standards, which are 32 spaces, is what we've calculated. Right now, there are over 50 spaces. So we're going to take out a fair amount of that asphalt paving, which is what we're asking for in exchange for the variation on the 5-foot setback to parking. We're going to add some landscaping, some turf areas. It'll add more pervious paving to the site, reduce runoff. We feel it's really a win for everybody to do that. And then the fourth ask has to do with the rooftop equipment on the building. As Dave mentioned, this has always been a restaurant, and therefore there's a lot of heat generated in the building. There's currently 5 units on the building, rooftop units, in addition to 3 exhaust units. So a lot of equipment up there. If you've ever noticed on the back of the building, it's pretty visible. Our proposal will take it'll take all 5 units off and replace 2 of them with smaller units. And we're going to leave one of the 3 exhaust units on the building. And what we're asking for in exchange for just kind of reducing the overall visual clutter, I'll call it, on the building, is a waiver on the screening requirement. Simply putting the screens on it would be difficult. It would be a challenge structurally. Not only because the screens add some weight to the structure of the building, but more so it's wind loads that they add to the building, and it's also drift loads. So when you put a screen on a building like this, you potentially get drifting snow around the screens, and the roof structure is just not designed for that. So we're asking for a waiver on that requirement, and ultimately it will look better at the end of the day. We are doing an exterior remodel. The building will be updated. We're going to leave a bunch of the stone on, but put some new metal siding on it, and just in general, bring it up to date, make it look much more like a modern building. The last thing I'd like to point out is that we feel that just overall, this is a great project for the city and a great project for the area that it's going into. One of the big things that this project will do for that neighborhood is, with that building always being a restaurant, it's always been a night and evening center of activity. So increased traffic around the area, light, noise. Being a vet center, it's a counseling center that'll basically operate 8 to 5 Monday through Friday, which is the time of day when people are out of their houses. During the evening and on the weekends, it'll be quiet. It'll basically be a vacant lot. So we think that's just again, a win-win for everybody in the area. So that's all I have to say about the project for now. We're excited about it. My firm does a lot of work for vets, and we're proud to do that, and excited to do another one here. And we will be available for questions if anybody has anything they'd like to ask of us.
Thank you, sir. Would anyone else like to speak in favor of the planned unit development request? Second call for anyone wishing to speak in favor. Third and final call for anyone wishing to speak in favor. I'll now ask if anyone would like to speak against this planned unit development request. Second call for anyone wishing to speak against. Third and final call for anyone wishing to speak against. The public hearing is now closed, and I will ask our city planner to give us a recap of the item.
Thank you, Mayor. This PUD request is to allow for deviations from the Unified Development Code district-specific standards for the mixed-use neighborhood MUN district. In particular, also the screening standards and parking standards. In particular, the developer is asking for 4 areas, including waiving the minimum building street frontage requirement and reducing the minimum 60% transparency requirement, waiver of the 5-foot parking lot setback requirement, and allowing the existing rooftop equipment and gas meter to remain unscreened. This structure was constructed prior to the new UDC standard, and as the applicant intends to invest more than 50% of the assessed improvement value of the structure, they are required to either come into conformance with the mixed-use development standards or apply for a planned unit development if they meet the minimum requirements. Included in the packet are attachments provided by the applicant, an overall site map, as well as architectural plans, and a cover letter and deviation request, as well as the application. The applicant is not requesting any deviations related to the density, lot area, setbacks, building height, environmental and cultural design, common open space, streets, utilities and drainage, traffic calming designs, circulation and access, landscaping, and signage. Instead, I will summarize the items where they are looking to make some deviation request. The first is we've classified it as the PUD perimeter. The proposed development complements the existing adjacent uses. They're requesting to waive section 13.03.52.A.4, which states that all mechanical rooftop and ground level mechanical equipment and utilities shall be fully screened from view from any street or residential district as viewed from 6 feet above ground level. Due to the past use of the buildings, of restaurants, brew pubs, etc., there remains 10 mechanical units, including 5 exhaust fans and 5 heating HVAC units on the roof structure. They're proposing to remove 4 of the exhaust fans and 3 of the heating AC units. The remaining 2 heating AC units would be replaced with smaller units. Lastly, the applicant has concerns related to the existing roof system by adding screens due to the roof supporting those said screens and the roof load increases caused by drifting snow and wind. City staff support the request to waive screens on the rooftop mechanical equipment. Based upon the drastic reduction in mechanical equipment counts, size of remaining mechanicals, and concerns the existing roof system, the new mechanical equipment will be less obtrusive and will improve the current view of the eastern side of the structure, which is directly across from residential uses. The next item relates specifically to architecture. They're requesting to waive section 13.02.54.A.1.A, which requires the minimum percentage of the street frontage for each lot that must be occupied by a building facade is measured at the required maximum front yard setback shall be 75%. The principal structure was constructed prior to the adoption of the UDC in 2020, and without a substantial addition, this requirement cannot be met. The applicant is requesting to waive also 13.02.54.C.3.A, which requires the ground story facade of a non-residential building fronting on a public street, park, or plaza shall have a minimum transparency of 60%. As stated, the structure was constructed prior to the adoption of the UDC, and without the addition of numerous windows along both the southern and eastern facades, this requirement cannot be met. The applicant states the addition of more windows would not be appropriate for the new use. City staff are supportive of these 2 requests related to the minimum percentage of street frontage and reduction of transparency, as the principal structure in question was constructed prior to the adoption of the UDC. The proposed project will include major renovations to the interior with some exterior building improvements as described previously. All other aspects of the MUN district design standards will be met by the applicant. The last item is parking. The applicant is requesting to waive section 13.03.21.B.3.C, which states that off-street parking is permitted in all yards of non-residential districts, but shall not be closer than 5 feet to a right-of-way line. The existing parking lot does not have the proper setback on all sides of the property. All other aspects of the new parking lot layout as proposed by the applicant meet access, parking stall, and aisle standards, and the number of parking stalls for both traditional stalls and ADA stalls of the UDC. The owner further intends to greatly reduce the amount of parking by removing pavement concrete on the northeastern corner of the parcel and provide open green space for both employees and visitors. City staff are in support of the request to not provide the 5-foot parking setback along the eastern and southern parcel lines. Removal of the 5-foot could greatly reduce the number of stalls available and would likely cause a shift in the location of the proposed ADA stalls and reduce site circulation. The remainder of the site is in conformance with the required setbacks, and as the pavement exists today, a reduction of stalls would be more detrimental to the overall development. City staff have put together a total of 10 conditions for this project. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Katie. Okay, with that being said, I'll turn this matter over to the Plan Commission. What is your desire?
I'll move to approve the request by Hagen Investments for as printed out here with the 14.
10. Okay. We have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
A motion on the floor by Bill Lethan. It's been seconded by Newt Temte to approve the PUD with the 10 conditions. Is there discussion? Eric?
My only question I think would be with ask for. The why of them all seem fairly obvious to me, except for ask for. In terms of the screening requirement, the request states that the roof would likely be inadequate to support the new mechanical screening. It seems like probably a net negative in terms of weight by removing all those exhaust fans, the smaller units. So I don't know if that statement supports what's actually happening in terms of being unable to support the structure. And I guess the second question I would have, I kind of give the benefit of the doubt to the city regulations in that they were well developed and that they've been through at least one round of scrutiny. The screens, if the concern is that they wouldn't be able to withstand snow drifts or, cause hazards, wouldn't that then be applicable to all the screens that we have in the city? How would this property be different?
Jared.
The architect is here, right? And I'm not, structural engineering is not my expertise, but I know enough to be dangerous. So what would happen is if you put a screening up, if it does, one of the biggest things, as it was stated by the architect in any design loading for a structure, a lot of times people don't think about the stresses caused by, and I don't know how tall the actual screening would have to be. It would depend on the height and things, but one of the things you always do design for is a wind load and or believe it or not, like we're probably going to have in a couple of days here, we get drifting snow and you get snow piled up against it. It does have a loading factor that does impact a roof structure a lot more than what you would think it would in a design. I don't know what the roof is actually designed for now. It would take some analysis to see what it would take, but I don't disagree that there is a component to it. I don't know if it can or can't. I don't have enough information and don't have that expertise, but it would definitely be a factor in a roof such as that if they would add the screening. So I think it is a legitimate concern. I don't know if I don't have the details to say it could be addressed or couldn't be addressed, but I would guess my intuition with the structural engineering I've been around, it would have an impact and it probably would make them modify the roof structure somehow, some way. And going back to the existing, even a new building, obviously, if we can require it for a new building, we can design those things into the design concept when they're designing the building, and they can add extra structural features, more trusses, more vertical columns that can carry that load. So I think that's probably where it's kind of Katie can elaborate, but that's kind of where we really want to really stress it. So when we start from scratch, it's in there from the beginning. So then we don't get into these instances.
Okay, Katie, did you want to add on to that or you're good? Are you good, Eric? Yes, thank you. Okay. Any other questions or comments from the committee? Okay, the motion on the floor is to approve with 10 conditions. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Item 7 is a public hearing for a Unified Development Code text amendment to section 13.02.68.B.3 related to locations of retaining walls. Applicant is the City of Onalaska. At this time, I would like to open the public hearing. and ask for people to speak in favor of this text amendment. Second call for anyone wishing to speak in favor. Third and final call for anyone wishing to speak in favor of the text amendment. Not seeing or hearing any, I'll close that part. And if anyone would like to speak against, now is the time to do so. If anyone would like to speak against this text amendment regarding retaining walls, please do so now. Third and final call for those speaking against. The public hearing is now closed, and I will ask Katie Aspenson, our city planner, for a brief summary of item 7.
Thank you. The UDC today allows retaining walls to be installed on side and rear parcel lines, and those in the street yard require a 3-foot setback from the public right of way. No permit is needed to install a retaining wall, and many retaining walls along street right of ways and sidewalks throughout the city are non-conforming as they do not have the minimum 3-foot setback. City staff are recommending to remove the 3-foot setback for retaining walls in the street yard and allow installation to occur in the same manner for all property lines. This would be bringing all non-conforming retaining walls that do not meet that setback into conformance with the UDC. And then we'd like to have some additional discussion on this topic with the Plan Commission.
Okay, thank you. Amanda?
I'm gonna actually request that this get referred. We understand as staff that there's a problem with this. However, I think that it takes a little bit more diving into it. I don't want to move ahead with a change. Sometimes, when we find an error, our immediate response is to fix it in the sometimes easiest way possible. And so I think if we're going to change this code section, we should really take a look at retaining walls across the city, as well as the height requirements. And so my ask would be that we just simply refer this to, say, February.
Okay, well, seeing as how this isn't a big season for retaining wall requests, I think we're okay if we just take no action and just move on to the next item, if that's okay with everyone.
And install it on the next February Plan Commission meeting?
We'll just take no action, and if when staff's ready to bring it back, we'll just bring it back.
Thank you.
That's okay with everyone. Okay. Item 8 has been withdrawn. Number 9, final implementation plan application to create a planned unit development to request deviation from the Unified Development Code relating to the mixed-use commercial district standards, specifically minimum building street frontage and minimum ceiling height requirements as part of the construction of a new office facility and site improvements located at 200 French Road, Onalaska. This is tax parcel ID number 18-4453-0, and the applicant is the DBS Group. So this is now the final implementation of what we passed earlier. Did you want to say something, Katie?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So this is the same information that was presented in the general development plan. There are only 11 conditions of approval tied to this request. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the final implementation plan application for a planned unit development at 200 French Road with the 11 conditions.
Thank you, Jared Holter. Is there a second? Thank you, Bill Lethan. So the motion has been made by Jared Holter, seconded by Bill Lethan to approve the final implementation plan with the 11 conditions. Discussion. Any discussion on the item? Okay, not seeing or hearing. All in favor of approving this final implementation plan with the 11 conditions, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion carries. Congratulations. Item 10, final implementation plan to create a planned unit development to request deviation from the Unified Development Code relating to the mixed-use neighborhood district standards, specifically minimum building street frontage and minimum transparency requirements, parking lot setback requirements, and a site element screening requirement as part of a remodeling and other site improvements for the project located at 910 Second Avenue North on Alaska. This is tax parcel ID number 18-1276-0, and the applicant is Hagen Barth Investments. Katie?
Thank you, Mayor. This item was covered previously in the creation of the general development plan. All the information is the same. However, there are 9 conditions of approval tied to the final implementation plan. Thank you.
Thank you. And what is the desire of the Plan Commission?
I'll make a motion that we approve agenda item 10 as detailed in tonight's agenda with the 9 conditions stated.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor by Newt Temte. It's been seconded by Eric Archer to approve this final implementation with the 9 conditions. Is there any discussion? Not seeing or hearing any. All those in favor of the final implementation with the 9 conditions, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Item 11 is a certified survey map application to create an outlot from a city-owned parcel to be merged with an adjacent residential parcel located at 1227 Oak Avenue North and 1224 Cliffview Avenue respectively. These are tax parcel ID numbers 18-2635-0 and 18-2682-0. Katie Aspenson, would you like to introduce this item?
Thank you, Mayor. The City of Onalaska owns the property at 1227 Oak Avenue North, which contains well number 8. The purpose of this request is to create an outlot from the western portion of the city's parcel with the intention of transferring this land to the adjacent property owner at 1224 Cliffview Avenue through a vacation and discontinuance request, which will be reviewed at a subsequent meeting. Additionally, as the parcels are zoned differently, you will also see at a subsequent meeting, the outlot will need to be rezoned prior to a land merge. The city has leased this land to the adjacent landowners for a lengthy period of time, and this process would formally dispose of the land and allow it to be returned to the tax roll. City staff have put together 8 conditions of approval tied to the certified survey map request. Thank you.
I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the certified survey map application with the conditions attached.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion on the floor by Jared Holter. It's been seconded by Bill Lethan to approve the certified survey map application with the 8 conditions. Is there any discussion? Jared?
Just to follow up, this has been use that's been leased out for since the 1980s. We have our actual city well house there. We've got enough land to operate our well house, run equipment in there and do the proper things we need. So this is kind of cleaning up that area with the use that it's been for many, many years.
Thank you. I did have one question. I thought when we initially maybe I'm getting confused with a different item. I thought this was the one that the homeowner was going to pay the fees. Is that true, Katie?
Sorry. The homeowner is going to be paying for the certified survey map itself. They're also paying for the cost to record the outlot. City staff waived the CSM fee in this location because it is our land that is currently looking to be subdivided as opposed to a private property.
Okay. Okay, any other questions or comments, Jan?
Does the fence, Jared, does the fence sit on property? Is it on the west side of the outlot or the east side?
As far as I know, I think the fence is very close to the property line. Well, what's proposed to be the transferred property line. Right now, the fence is actually sitting on city-owned lands.
City on land. That's what I was thinking.
But with this transfer now, the fence will be on the outlot, which should be transferred to the homeowner.
Thank you.
If you drive by there right now, you wouldn't know that you'd think it went with the property. If you drove by there right now.
I have a little bit of a question that
Sure.
is the dark line on the map you drew us the property line for the house? Right, like it's 110 feet right on top of that line, and then there's a little jog of 7.83 feet to the property line of the city. Is that?
So currently, the current property at 12, I'm gonna get the address wrong here, 1227
Yeah,
Oak Avenue North. Their property is 87.93 frontage on Cliffview and 110.08 on Grove Street and 110 even on their south property line. And 100 on the back property line. So the city owned parcel is actually 7.83 feet more in larger in dimension to the south. So they will be gaining that 26 by 107.83 outlot. That's what the outlot one will be.
so does somebody own what's listed there as block 1 Skyview Edition?
Yes, someone would actually own that. That's another residence right there. So they'll be L-shaped and have 7.83 feet along that other lot. And that's the way it's currently, that's the way the fence is currently.
Oh, okay.
So it's nothing that hasn't been there for probably 40 years.
So everybody's already.
It's already been like that. The neighbors, yeah.
Mow the
Yeah.
lawn, et cetera.
Yeah, yep.
Okay, Jan?
You're not planning on taking down the well house, right? Just
No.
property. Okay.
That's a very, very needed public infrastructure, but we
Nice
feel
looking.
we've been using it the way we have for 40 years. We feel we've got enough room to adequately do the functions that we need.
Okay, City Attorney Amanda Jackson?
Yeah, this is just really a cleanup. We have at some point the property was developed, their property was developed onto city property. So we have a pool, we have a fence, we have some very developed landscaping, all of which really form the property owner's backyard that is on city property. We tried for many years to correct it with a lease. That's not probably the best long-term solution for the city or the property owner. And so we're really just trying to clean this up at this point.
Thank you for that. Any other questions or comments? Okay, the motion on the floor is to approve the certified survey map application with the 8 conditions. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Item 12 is a city staff update on the corner residential property fencing field survey. Katie, are you covering that or? Okay, Katie Aspenson, city planner.
Thank you, Mayor. To date, city staff have been able to survey every corner property every corner property residential that is east of Highway 53 and both north and south of Interstate 90. So geographically, we've cleared half the city to date, and we will be picking up again after the holiday season. We have seen thus far more compliance with the way our ordinance is currently written. But it's also important to note that this area is historically later built than the more central part of the city, which staff will be going after later. I will note that there is a variety of the non-compliance. The bulk of it is tied to someone is putting their fence too close to the street and they're aligning it with either the front of the house or various stages of the house. So instead of the rear yard, they may be installing it halfway up the front of the house or 3/4 or maybe 2 or 3 feet north of it. So again, we don't have fence permits, so we don't know when these fences went in. But in general, we are seeing more compliance with our code as currently written and not as much non-compliance. So at the next meeting, we will give you an additional update to where we're at. And when we're finished with the survey, we'll give you some data and numbers related to compliance, non-compliance, and in what way.
Well, thank you. We appreciate that. Does the commission have any other questions or comments for staff? Okay, we'll move on then to item 13, the 2023 Plan Commission meeting schedule and application deadlines. Katie, would you like to speak on that?
Thank you, Mayor. So included in your packet are the application deadlines for when the planning committee, when the planning department will accept applications for the subsequent meeting. There's typically about 20 days or so between an application deadline and the meeting itself. That's to allow for proper public hearing notifications for many of the public hearings that we have. Generally, the Plan Commission meetings will be the fourth Tuesday of the month. But due to some holidays such as Thanksgiving and Christmas, we tend to shift those weeks. So I would encourage you to put these dates in your calendar. And again, if there's any not need for a meeting, staff will notify the Plan Commission as soon as possible so you can clear that evening and go on your merry way. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from the commissioners?
Just one comment. I noticed that the November meeting is the Tuesday after Thanksgiving, right?
Appears to be so. November 28th.
The reason for that is because had we moved further, it would have been in conflict with the Common Council meeting. So we try to keep that date held the second Tuesday of every month, so the Plan Commission is more likely to move. Typically, we try to move it earlier, but in this case, we moved it later.
Okay, any other questions or comments on this topic? Okay, that brings us to item 14, adjournment. Oh, sorry.
Need to have a recommendation to move this to the Common Council for final approval
Oh, I'm
of the
sorry.
meeting dates.
Okay, so we do need to take action on the meeting.
Yes,
dates.
please.
I'll entertain a motion regarding that.
I'll move to approve the commission council meeting dates as proposed in agenda item 13.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
A motion on the floor by Eric Archer. It has been seconded by Bill Lethan to approve the 2023 Plan Commission meeting schedule and application deadlines. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Item 14, adjournment. Anyone? Bill Lethan, second.
I'll second the motion.
Jared Holter. Motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. We are adjourned 8:03.